All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Welcome to our February 2026 installment of ENERCALC Office Hours. Welcome back to our frequent flyers, and welcome if you're here for the first time. We always have just a few quick housekeeping items to go through before we start the program. Our first item is to begin with a sound check. So, if you direct your attention to the bottom menu of your Zoom window in your browser or your desktop, you'll see we have the chat tool. We also have our reaction emojis. If you can hear me right now, give us a thumbs up, give us an okay in the chat, give us a applause emoji of choice, and we'll know that you can hear us loud and clear. That's perfect. Thank you guys so much. We also want to do a sound check and visual check for our primary speaker for today. So here in a moment, Mac is going to go ahead and share his screen. And when he does that, once again, if you can see Mac's screen and then hear his voice in a moment, go ahead and give us a reaction again so that we know we're coming through loud and clear. Go ahead, Mac.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February session of Office Hours.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for confirming our tech checks. We're now going to go ahead and disable the chat tool, and we'll move on to our introductions and get going on today's program. For question and answer, we do have the Q&A dialogue, which we'll get to in a moment. So my name is Seth Roseworm. I'm a senior structural engineer and software developer here at ENERCALC. And you guys know by now our presenter for the monthly office hours program is Mac Elterhony. Mac is a senior structural engineer here at ENERCALC, and he splits his time between providing technical training for ENERCALC customers, working with the ENERCALC engineering team on the specs and technical behavior of our software, and also helping maintain a presence for ENERCALC at national and regional events throughout the industry. As some of you also know Mac professionally as the founder and managing principal of Elta Design Group, which is a specialty structural engineering firm. And he's been an ENERCALC user for over a decade, and so he has a lot of great insight about the needs of our customers. For anyone who's new here this month, Office Hours is all about direct lines of communication between us and our users, and we do that through several avenues. We showcase new features and updates and tell you about what's the latest, greatest changes going on in ENERCALC. We show optimized design workflows where we go through specific modules and design processes, and then we do live Q&A with the audience at the end of every session. Now, if there's ever a question that's too involved or it's going to require deeper digging and research, that might be a better fit for our support team to look under the hood and give you more detailed answers. As a minor point of order, you will notice everybody's microphones are muted just to make sure we don't get any echo or feedback during Mac's presentation. And as I mentioned, we do have open Q&A at the end of every office hours session. So to submit a question for today's Q&A, just use the Q&A dialog in the lower dashboard of your Zoom window. And if you experience audio problems at any point during the session, you should be able to simply refresh your browser or jump out of the session and rejoin. And if you ever want to rewatch today's program or any of our past office hours programs or share it with someone on your team, those recordings are all posted to the Office Hours playlist on ENERCALC's YouTube channel, which you can also access from the Office Hours page on our website. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mac to get us going on our program for today.
Thank you, Seth, for the great introduction. And again, welcome everyone to Office Hours. As Seth said, my name is Mac Elterhony, and I am excited to be presenting to you today about the live and dynamic load linking feature that ENERCALC offers in various modules. So I would like to start our session today with a brief overview of the agenda. We have a quick PDH announcement, ENERCALC's latest build, what's new in ENERCALC, and then we will dive deep into load linking, the full load path, and then we wrap up with how to register for office hours to get notified of future office hour events, and of course wrap it up with live Q&A. As you already know by now, we do offer a half a PDH to the live attendees, and that represents the guaranteed technical portion of the presentation. The name that we use in the certificate is the same name that you used today to enter the Zoom session. So if you enter the Zoom session as XYZ, that's what's going to get printed. So if you want your full name, if you want only your first name, only initials, whatever you want, to use or you want printed on the certificate, please make sure that that is the name that you use to enter the Zoom session. And of course, if at the end of the day, if the certificate does not have the name the way you want it displayed, please reach out to us and I'll make sure that we get it updated and send you a new certificate. And it's good to know here that the link that we sent with your certificate expires in 30 days. So download these certificates as soon as you get them. Otherwise, the link will expire, and then you'll have to reach out to us, and we'll have to send it to you, send you that certificate individually. So first, would like to encourage you to check your software, check ENERCALC, and see what build you're on. We want to make sure that you're always on the latest build. So if you could take a minute, take a quick look at the very top portion of ENERCALC, and that's how you know what build you're on. We do release monthly updates, and we want to make sure that our users are taking advantage of this because every month we fix bugs, we add new features and just add more capabilities as we go. Many times we do receive support questions about issues, and the answer to a good portion of those support questions is that, hey, we already know about this and we already fixed it. Just make sure you're on the latest and the greatest. The current build of ENERCALC is 2026-0206. This was released publicly last week. To update ENERCALC is very simple. You just go and click on this update button right here at the top right corner of the upper ribbon. And once you click on it, you will get this window. You click on launch for our users webpage. This will take you to our website, and you can click on the second link, which is the ENERCALC updater. So once you download that and you run it, you will be on the latest and greatest. Also, want to make sure that as you go through this process, always make sure that this option is checked. So ENERCALC always tells you if there is a new update at program startup. So this way you're always aware of any new releases. A quick note here for users who are on build 2023-830 to 2024-0228. The feature to notify you of the availability of new updates does not function properly. So for those affected, if you are in this range and you're affected, then the user will need to update manually. It's a one-time effort. You just update ENERCALC one time manually through our website, through the process that I just showed you. And once you're done with that, you will be able to be notified of future updates. And again, we are on 2026-0206. If you prefer to be notified of the latest ENERCALC updates by email, you can either scan this QR code or go to this website, enercalc.com/update-emails. Fill in just a simple form here, and this will allow us to send you an email every time we release a new update, so you know that it got that there's a new update for you, a new build for you to update ENERCALC to. And if you have not been on the latest build or you haven't had a chance to take a look around, I want to highlight a few features from the past few months. And I want to make sure that you guys are taking advantage of this. And of course, the first most important feature is decoupling everything. This happened recently. And to give you an idea, if you click on the building code and loads combination button, you will now see a different window than what you're typically used to. The user now has the option to mix and match everything. This is a great level of flexibility for our users because it allows the user to produce calculations that exactly match what they need. So in this example, you can see that we are on IBC 2018 but we have or we're using ASCE 722, and for example, we're using NDS 2024. So this is a mix and match right here to match whatever your local jurisdiction requires for their calculation package. And however, if the user does not want to mix and match, and if the user just wants to use the default design standards that are referenced by the IBC, the user does not have to memorize that information. And instead, all you have to do is click on this button right here, sync referenced design standards with selected IBC edition. So for example, right now they're not, there's a mix and match going on here, but if you do click on this button, it will bring everything right here in compliance with what the IBC 2018 actually references, and that's why you can see this went back to ASC 716, the NDS went to NDS 2018, and so forth. So also you can see anything in yellow here, that means it's not part of it's not referenced in that edition of the IBC. But if you click on the button and everything is in compliance again, then everything will be black instead of yellow. Now, keep in mind, all of the code changes that we just talked about will only apply to the calculations within that specific ENERCALC file. If you want to apply this code selection as a default for all future projects that you create, then you will need to click on this button right here, which says Set Default Governing Code and Design Standards for all new project files. If you click on this, you'll get this window, and this window will show you the old default values and the new default values. So for example, it used to be ASC 722. That's the old value. The new value will be ASCE 716 and so forth. So if that's what you want, if this is the new default that you want to use for future projects, then you click on save, and that will confirm the selection and will ensure that this is the default governing code that will be used for all of your future projects. Next is the new tabs, and they're not so new now. We've had them for a while now, and those are these three new tabs for the ASCE 722 loads and forces modules. We have seismic loads tab, wind loads tab, and a tab for other loads. A user can create a calculation for whichever one they want, and they can create as many as they want. Previously, the user can only have one calc per loads and forces module, but now you can have multiple. And it is important to note that these tabs will only show up, they will only be visible if you are using ASCE 722. So if this is the codes, if AC 722 is selected, then these three tabs will appear and will become visible. If you are on ASCE 716 or older, then ENERCALC will revert back to the old options with the menu to select the loads and forces modules that you want to launch. So this more flexibility is only available in ASCE 722 and, of course, for future ASCE 7 editions. However, just for your reference, this is with the older menu format for ASCE 716 and older editions. That's what it used to look like, if you remember it, where everything is already preloaded and you only have one calculation only. You can't create multiple ASCE 716 seismic-based shear calculations. It's just this one right here. So again, if you're on ASCE 716 and older, this will be the old menu, and that's what you'll have. If you're on ASCE 722 and all the future ASCE 7 editions, of course, they will have the new tabs that we just covered. Native load linking within ENERCALC has been an exciting feature with rapid development. For those who do not know, load linking is an ENERCALC native feature that gives the user the ability to automatically link reactions from one calculation to another, and the ability to change something in one member and have the effects of that change trickle down to all the supporting members. Load linking is currently available for steel beams, wood beams, steel columns, wood columns, and the general footing. module, which with more integrations to come. But you are here today, so you will learn a lot more about load linking, as this is the meat of the conversation today, and we will cover that here soon in a few minutes. Another update that's been really useful, which is the ability to export tabular detailed results from ENERCALC to a CSV file. This has been useful to a lot of engineers who want to post-process some of the results outside of ENERCALC. All you need to do is go to the results that you're interested in. So for example, you can click on detailed result, ASD shares a moment, and you just right click anywhere here and it'll give you the option to save to CSV to your computer. And once you have that downloaded to your computer, you can post process it however you see fit. And this is available practically in all of our modules. Columns, beams, slender walls, shear walls, foundations, and of course all of our analysis modules. Another update that we did recently, but we still get people surprised to know that it exists, which is the update that we did here for the general footing. So we allow, or ENERCALC now allows the ability to specify a top layer of reinforcement. By default, this is turned off, so it's unchecked. But if you check it, this portion will become visible, and now you can specify your reinforcement in each direction, in the X direction and the Z direction, and this is the top layer. So you can pretty much specify your reinforcement in the long direction and the short direction, and both top and bottom for a greater level of flexibility. And of course, on the right-hand side here, this is the calculation displayed and the results displayed right here. And you can see that we have expanded this quite a bit. So you can see, when we say Z flexure, okay, well, it's top tension or bottom tension. So this will help you a little bit, make it a little bit easier for you to identify what type of reinforcement that you need to increase or decrease and see what controls your design. We also recently added full support for ACI 318.25. A few jurisdictions already started adopting the ACI 318.25, including Georgia, I believe, in January. We're seeing this happen more often now, where a jurisdiction adopts a certain IBC edition and then handpick newer editions of certain design standards. So you might be on IBC 2015, but the local jurisdiction wants to adopt the ACI 318.25, for example, or ASC 722. So again, with what we talked about earlier, the mix and match, you'll be able to have this great level of flexibility to make sure that your drawings and your calculations remain compliant with the authority having jurisdictions over your project. But yeah, it's a very simple process. Again, you click on the building code and load combinations button right here, and you choose the ACI edition that you want to use for your project. And if 318.25 is the one that you got to use, then you can simply just click select it from this drop-down menu. With every new update to ENERCALC, we send release notes to outline what changed and what got updated and what got fixed. This gives you a quick idea about the top changes, so you can take advantage of the new features, know that certain bugs have been fixed, and maybe new features were added or new capabilities were added. So this will give you a quick idea about if the new build is actually has some significant changes, or maybe there's minor changes. So that's a quick way, an easy way for you to keep track of that. You can subscribe to receive the release notes easily from within ENERCALC by clicking on the update icon right here. And then again, you just click on this button right here, subscribe to new build email updates. And again, you put your information and you can send to the email, and you will be receiving those emails as soon as we make an update or release a new build. So moving on, the focus of our session today is the load linking feature and how you can use this powerful feature to link reactions from one calculation to another to form a well-connected and a dynamic chain of calculations that follow the proper load path and reduce transcription errors, and more importantly, reduce the time wasted on manual entry of loads. So here's a quick overview of the capabilities of load linking. So the link you can link reactions from one member to another, and that means you carry down loads in proper categories such as dead and live and snow and all of that. So you are not just carrying a 15 kip reaction, an envelope reaction. What you're actually carrying is you're carrying the full composition of that load, the 3 kip dead, the 2 kip roof live, and so forth. So you're carrying the full composition down for a more accurate load combination um, uh, work that you can do down the road. Full gravity load path linking of reactions from beam to column to footing. So you have the full load path available to you. Dynamic and smart load linking means if a reaction upstream changes, the affected downstream members identify the change and update accordingly. You don't have to make those manual update. You don't have to make those updates manually anymore. Easy bulk recalculation button for fast results. Smart and robust load linking logic that identifies proper load paths, and this is very important. It prevents circular loading and establish safety guardrails for the user. So it's not like you're taking a reaction from a beam, you put another beam, and then you're just going into this endless cycle of one beam supporting another without with complete disregard to physics. So with that being said, I want to take you today into an example that would showcase how this feature can be useful and how it can be implemented in your daily workflow. So the objectives today's session is to learn how load linking can help you manage tedious framing. The objective is to learn how useful and extensive the load linking feature is in ENERCALC, and with the goal of you walking away with enough information to allow you to implement load linking effectively in your design workflow. So we will not be focusing on creating or on how to create a new beam calculation or a new column calculation, etc. What we're going to be focusing on is how to use the linked loads tab inside each one of these calculations, how to use it and how to link those reactions together. So first, I want to set the stage by walking you through the sketch so you have an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. So on the left-hand side right here, we have steel girder number 1 right here. And this steel girder supports reactions from steel beam number 1, and it supports reactions from wood beam number 1. So this girder right here takes reactions from steel beam and takes reactions from wood beam. On the right-hand side, we have wood girder number 1. This wood girder supports wood beam number 1, but the wood beam now it's really more of a joist at 24-inch on center. So that is the right-hand side of the equation here. So and then these the steel girder and the wood girder are supported by this HSS 6x4 column. So we want to learn how to link the reactions from the girders to the column. And then the column also supports a lateral load from a girt that's located at 9 feet above finish floor. So we have a 4-kip wind load, lateral wind load out of plane that's applied to the column. And then lastly, we want to figure out how to grab the reaction from the column and apply it to this footing that is a 6 by 4, and this footing has to be in this specific orientation. So it's a 6 by 4 footing. So this is the whole idea. This is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve is just this linking of various calculations. That's the goal today. So we will start with the members that are the most upstream in the load path. So we have wood beam number one, shown in green boxes. These beams apply reactions on steel girder number one. So we have a reaction right here. And also, these wood beams apply reactions at 24-inch on center to the wood girder. So that is the first most upstream member we have. The second, also most upstream member we have is steel beam number one, and that's shown here in red box. This beam applies a reaction on steel girder number one. And I just want to read this here out loud for everyone. So floor framing plant, the sketch is not to scale, and it's produced manually on the PDF editor. So this is not something that ENERCALC produces. This is just a sketch of a floor plan to show you what we're working with to set the stage. So I went ahead and I created steel beam one. That's the first calculation. And I already created steel beam, wood beam one calculations. Those calculations are already created. Those are the primary members that we talked about. They frame into the girder, and these beams are the first beams in the chain. So the next item we have here is this steel girder number one. So this girder supports 2 wood beams and 1 steel beam. Normally, the user will have to manually apply the reactions from each beam onto the steel girder. The load gets applied as a point load, and it's a manual entry. If the reaction changed from the wood beam, or if the reaction later on changes from this steel beam, then that means that the user is responsible for updating that point load that we applied on the girder. They'll have to update it manually. This process is extremely tedious, but this has been the norm for a very long time. So instead, now we can establish a live link between the wood beam calculation, which is responsible for this beam right here, and the steel girder. We can then establish another live link between the calculation for the steel beam and the steel girder right here to link those reactions. So the live link allows the reactions to be automatically and dynamically linked from the beam to the girder. And if the beam reaction changes in the future, the reaction will automatically be updated and applied to the girder and, of course, to the other downstream members without really needing any manual adjustment. So I already created the calculation for the steel girder, as you can see right here, and I want to draw your attention to this green chain link symbol next to the steel girder calculation. This symbol indicates that this calculation uses load linking. This means that this calculation has a live link that grabs the reactions from another calculation. And of course, this makes sense because this is the steel girder and grabs reactions from steel beam number one, as well as it grabs reaction from the wood beam number one. So that makes sense, and it makes sense that we do have this symbol. So also, I'm sure you noticed that the first 2 calculations do not have that symbol attached to them. And again, that makes sense because the load in these most upstream members, that load is applied manually. So that is the first, think of it as the seed load. That load is applied manually. So they're not grabbing a reaction from any other member because they're the most upstream members. Hence, they do not have a linked reaction symbol next to them. So let's go ahead and open up the steel girder calculation to see what it looks like. And so this is a screenshot of the steel girder calculation specifically under the linked loads tab. This tab you're going to find this tab in all of our calculations today because that's where all of the linked reactions or the load linking happens under this tab right here. So on the left-hand side, you see a list of all of the beams that you can grab a reaction from. So you can see here steel beam, the first steel beam. You can see a wood beam right here. You can grab reactions from all these guys. On the right-hand side, you will see a 2D sketch of that selected beam. So I selected steel beam number one. That's what it looks like. That's the loads on it. And this is support number one. This is support number two. And you can grab whatever reaction you want. However, if I click on this wood beam right here, what happens is that this sketch will actually update. So if I click on this wood beam, look at that. This sketch completely updates and it looks different. And the reactions are different. So this 2D sketch is really helpful for us just to jog our memory and figure out which reaction we want to grab and make sure that we're actually grabbing the right beam. And this theme is you can find the same style in all of our calculations where there is some sort of a members to grab reactions from, and then some sort of a sketch that helps you identify what you're grabbing, what you're grabbing and how to link it and all of that. So anyways, back to the girder design. If you look at the very, so we want to make sure that we're grabbing here the steel beam. And if you look at the very bottom right here, you have something called linked reactions. This is a table where all of your linked reactions live. It shows the source of each linked reaction or each linked load, and it shows how each load is applied. So for example, the first load right here, the source of the first load is steel beam. You can see here that the method of placement is mid-span, which makes sense. We said that we have the first steel beam is applied on the steel girder at mid-span, and then the second and the third, those are the wood beams, and their method of placement is a specific location. At the first one is at 6 feet, and the second one at 22 feet. And again, this makes sense. This is what we have here. The first piece is at 6 feet, and the second load, which is from the wood beam, is at 22 feet, and the steel beam load is at the mid span. So that makes sense. All of the loads now all of the reactions have been linked properly, and you can see them right here that they have been linked and tabulated. And you can see that each linked load comes in as a full set of loads, which is, the dead, the roof live, and if it has snow and so forth, or if it has floor live, all of that will be right there for you. So moving on now from the steel girder to the wood girder, which is practically the same thing. So it has wood beams spaced at 24-inch on center. So let's take a look at what that calculation looks like. So if you open the wood girder calculation and you click on the linked loads tab, you can see here that we already linked the source of the load here is wood beam. That's the first wood beam. And the method of application is spacing. And that means this is spaced. And if you look at it, we have it starting at 0. And then the load repeats itself every 2 feet. And that makes sense because we have a joist at 24-inch on center. So now that we have linked the reactions from the wood beams directly into the wood girder at 2-foot spacing interval as shown in here. So now that all the reactions have been linked into the girders, both girders, and the girders have been designed, so, you would go through your process, you design what that steel girder looks like, you design what that wood girder looks like, and you're done and you save and close. Now you are ready to work on the column. And that is the next piece right here. So now we want to establish those connections, those links between the girders and the column. And again, the column is a 6x4, and it's oriented this way. And it has a lateral out-of-plane load out-of-plane wind load of 4 kips, and it's at 4 feet above finish floor. So if you open the steel column calculation and click on the linked loads tab, again, the same theme, you're clicking on that, you will see a list of the beams that you can link a reaction from. So we see all the beams that we have in the project, and we can grab a reaction from whichever we want. So the list is shown on the left side, like we normally do here. And of course, on the right-hand side, you'll show the sketch. And at the very bottom, you will see the already linked reactions right here. So you can see here the first source is the steel girder. So the first source is the steel girder, and you can see that we have applied that load at -3 inches in the x direction. That's the x eccentricity, and it says edge. That means it's 3 inches from the edge of the column, not the center of the column. And if you're familiar with our steel column module or any of our column modules, this is a similar language, similar style of load application where you can apply the load from the center of the column, and that would be a reference point, or it could be applied from the edge of the column. So in our case, we want to apply the steel girder load at 3 inches away from the face of HSS, and it says -3, which means to the left, because that's the convention that we use here. So -3 in the x direction is to the left. Keep in mind, you could have a y eccentricity as well. In our case, where we have that as 0, but you could have a number for y eccentricity. The same thing here, the location is at the top of the column. That's what we've chosen, but you could have chosen something else. I could say specify, and I could put it at 13 feet from the base of the column and so forth. So that is the first source of load. And as you can see here, it grabs the dead load, the live load, the roof live, the floor live, and the snow. And that's from the steel girder. And then, of course, the wood girder, which comes from the right-hand side, we have that applied at 2 inches, again, from the edge, but now it's in the positive direction. So it's coming from the right-hand side and no y eccentricity. And again, the location is still at the top of the column. So you can see here that the loads are applied and they are linked right here, and they are included in this table. So I always like to go and look at the 2D tab and sometimes the 3D tab just to see the visual representation of the load application. So for example, if you click on the 2D tab for this column, you will see the reaction. This is from the wood girder right here, and it says linked load. This is not a manually applied load. It says linked load, and it's at 2 inches away from the face in the positive direction. And this one here, the reaction from the steel girder is at -3 inches away from the face of the HSS. So this visually looks great, and we're a lot more confident now in how the load got applied. Next step is to manually apply the 4 kips wind load, the out-of-plane wind load that comes from the wind girts. And I'm showing you this to let you know that you can mix and match. You can manually apply loads, and you can also have linked loads. So it's not like if you use linked loads you can't have manually applied loads. You can mix and match and do whatever that makes your workflow easier. So for this one, we don't have a calculation for that wind girt, but I know that the wind girt will apply 4 kips of wind load at 9 feet above the finished floor. So it's a simple process. You click on the loads tab, then you go to lateral loads because that's what you're trying to apply. And then from the drop-down menu, you need to pick the load type. Is it uniform load, partially uniform, and so forth? In our case, is a point load. I always encourage everyone to put a description of where that load comes from. I'm just saying lateral load from wind girt, but this is always a lifesaver for anyone who comes and review your work. They'll know the source of these manually applied loads that you're bringing in, and then of course you enter right here 4 kips for wind load, and then it asks you how's that load applied. We're saying it's out of plane, and based on the orientation that we have for this project or for this example, it's going to be parallel to the y-axis, and again 9 feet above finished floor. So we are good to go there. And you can see here again, I went to check on the 2D under the 2D tab. I was able to see the applied loads, and this is kind of this is looking at it from this side, where you can see here the point load that's being applied. You're looking at it from like that from here, and you're seeing the point load is applied horizontally, which is this one right here. So Now that we applied all the loads to the column and the column has been designed, again, you go through the rest of your typical process and you design the column and assuming that 6 by 4 works. And we are ready now to move forward to the footing. So we want to start a footing calculation and we need to link the reaction from the column to the footing. ENERCALC allows you to link the axial reaction from the column as well as the lateral reactions in both the x and the y directions, so the shear in the x and the y directions. And of course, if you had any base moments in the x and in the y directions, all of these reactions are allowed, and ENERCALC links them. So this is a full reaction transfer, which unlocks the full potential, of course, of the general footing module that ENERCALC has. So in our case, again, it's a 6 by 4, and keep in mind the long dimension is like that. So this is the 6 right here, and the 4 is the short dimension right here. So if we open a new general footing calculations and you go through your process, your soil, bearing allowables, and you go to your footing data and all of that stuff, and then you get right here. We're focused today on again on linking loads. So if you click on the link loads, you will see on the left-hand side a list of the columns that this project has. Now, currently our project has only one column, so that's why you're only seeing one right here. But if we have multiple columns, they will all appear on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you see multiple tabs. You have an elevation sketch of the column, you have a plan sketch of the column, like a cross section, and you have the base reaction. And this is important because again, if you worked with any of our column modules, you know that you get the elevation sketches, elevation in the X, elevation in the Y, and then of course you get a full cross section sketch. So you still access these right here, and of course you have the base reactions. So you can click on them and you can apply them. And when you apply them, you have to provide a little bit more information on how that column is aligned to the footing. So we have something called footing plus X, footing minus X, footing plus Z, and footing minus Z. Now this is kind of hard to understand by just reading the label here. So we do have this button right here, and if you click on it, you'll get a visual of what each one of these actually means. So if you click on this button, you get to see, you'll get this window, and if you click on each tab from the, in this window, you'll get a different sketch. But for now, I just kind of want us to focus on footing plus X and footing plus Z, just so you can see the difference. So if the column is aligned with the plus X, which is this one here, then this is the orientation that you would get for the column in terms, for the column right here. So that means you can see the strong axis of the column is oriented this way. That's the strong axis of the column. So the HSS 6 by 4, the 6 will be oriented in the same way that this strong axis right here, the same way that this column is oriented, this W column in the sketch. This means that the long dimension of the footing, if you remember from earlier, if the column is like this is the 6-inch dimension, this is the 4-inch dimension. So the footing, this is the 6, and this is the 4. So going back now to this right here, if that's the orientation, then this needs to be 6, and this needs to be 4. Now, if you choose the footing plus Z, then now this is oriented completely differently, rotated 90 degrees. Then now, if that is the strong direction, then this piece needs to be the 6 feet, and this one needs to be the 4 feet. And that's different because now the 6 feet is the Z direction. And in this case, the 6 feet is the X direction. That's why whatever you're working on, this is going to matter because how the column is oriented is going to dictate your dimensions for the foundation. Is it going to be a 6 by 4? Is it going to be a 4 by 6? So you just have to reconcile how you did your footing or how you put the footing dimensions versus how the column is oriented on top of that footing. It's very intuitive once you see these sketches. So once you kind of get used to them a little bit, once you see the sketches, you'll be able to orient the column and the footing correctly. And more importantly, you have the 2D and the 3D footing sketches that will always serve as a sanity check for you to make sure that you have everything oriented properly. So for us, we're going to go ahead and move on with the footing plus X orientation. So this means that the footing X dimension right here, this needs to be 6 feet, and this needs to be 4 feet. And this makes sense now that the the 4 kips wind load that's applied in the y direction, it's right here. It acts as a shear in the y direction, so that is perfect. Now, it's one more thing for you to note here. If you're experienced with ENERCALC, for columns, we use X and Y. Those are the directions. But for footings, the labeling is X and Z directions. So this lays them on top of each other here so you can reconcile them. As far as the X's, they're the same, and the Y is really the same as the Z direction. They're positive Y or positive Z, they're exactly the same. So now that you have a good understanding of the orientation and we're good to go, so we can now move forward. Just make sure that you remain consistent with whatever you end up choosing. So you can see here once that the loads have been applied, and we apply them again to the footing plus X. Once those loads have been applied, they show up, of course, in this table right here, in the linked reactions table. And for a quick sanity check, the wind load is applied at the footing as a column shear, and you can see it. It's applied along the Z direction of the footing. That makes sense. That's the wind load, which is really the column shear in the Y direction. And that, again, is correct because the Y direction right here and the Z direction are the same. So that tells me that we have everything oriented properly. For another sanity check, I recommend checking on the 3D tab to see the 3D representation of the foundation. You can see right here, again, this is the 6-foot dimension of the footing. This is the 4-foot dimension of the footing. And this is the application of the wind load, the point load, wind load that we have, which is accurate. It's pointing in this direction, which is towards the positive Z direction. So again, that tells me that everything is proper and we got everything oriented correctly the way we want it. So now that we have a fully connected chain of calculations from the first most upstream beam to the girders, to the column, to the foundation, your work here is done and you're good to go. But sometimes, maybe a few weeks down the road, you realize that your work is not really done, and now you need to design the wood beam to take a heavier dead load. So that means things are changing. If this wood beam is now taking different loads, then now the wood girder is changing, the steel girder is changing. Well, that will affect your column. So now your column is going to change and your footing now is going to change. And this change doesn't mean that you have to change sizes. This change just means that there's a change in reactions. You will have to go through it again, reevaluate it, and see if that is going to warrant a size change or not. This is an extremely tedious process, and it's extremely manual. However, ENERCALC makes this a much more manageable and, dare I say, a simple and fun process even by using load linking. So as soon as you change the loads in the wood beam, what happens is that ENERCALC flags all the affected members. Once you change this, all of the affected members downstream will get flagged. So first of all, before I dive deeper into this, you should always click on this tab right here, which shows the calculations in the proper load path order. That's why they're shown this way. It's not because they were created this way. They might be created differently or different in different sequence. But if you click on calc order, it will always show them in the proper load path order. This is pretty good for a visual, helpful visual representation. So anyways, next you can see here that next to the steel girder and the wood girders, you have a yellow chain link symbol. This means that these girders have an outdated linked reaction. The color yellow signifies that the outdated link reaction comes from an immediately preceding calculation, meaning one step upstream from the girder. So in this case, that makes sense because this is the one that feeds into the steel, that feeds into the girder, the steel girder, the wood girder. Both of these are fed a reaction from the wood beam. So that's the immediately preceding member. That member changed, then these two are yellow. And if you go down here to the steel column and the general footing, they are shown in a red chain link symbol. That means that these members have an outdated reaction. We know that. But this outdated reaction is far upstream, which means that more than one step. This means that since the wood beam is the one that changed, the red here indicate that this member, aka the column, cannot be updated without updating the girder. And the same thing for footing. The footing is saying that, well, I can't update until the column is updated, and the column cannot update until the one before it's updated and so forth. So that's pretty much what yellow and green really mean. But either way, they all mean that they have outdated reactions. You can trigger these calculations one at a time. So if you want to update this, all you have to do is just you go in order and you update one at a time. You click on it, you open it, you trigger a recalculation, you do a save and close, then it'll be done. Then you go to the next one, open it, trigger a recalculation, save and close, and so forth. Now, if you have like 20 of these, this is a long process, tedious again. So that's not necessarily what you should be doing. Instead, there is a process that's a lot better, and that is the recalculate linked loads button right here. So you can click on this button that says, recalculate linked loads, and this button will trigger a bulk recalculation for all of the calculations, all while respecting the proper load path. So it can carry reactions from one member to another, from upstream all the way downstream to the footing without you having to lift a finger. Well, except the first finger lifting that you do when you click on the button, but after that, you're good to go. So once you click on this, you will get this window that shows you the progress of the recalculation. And once it's all done, everything will turn into green. Now, I want to make this crystal clear. This green symbol has nothing to do with pass or fail. This is not telling you that the member size, the HSS 6x4 works. It's not telling you that the footing works. It doesn't tell you anything about the design. All it tells you is that the reactions are linked and the reactions that you're using are the most up-to-date reactions. There are no new information. But it does not tell you if the steel, the HSS 6x4 that you're using here still works or doesn't work. It does not tell you that. You'll have to make sure that it still works. But at least you don't have to worry about tracking the different reactions and what changed and take it downstream and all of that. So this green right here indicates that your reactions are linked, your reactions are up to date. You don't have to worry about having outdated information or outdated loads. You will still have to be responsible to check the member design, the member safety. So in summary, load linking is such a useful and time-saving feature that allows the user to live link the reactions from one member to another. And currently, ENERCALC load linking is supported in wood beams, steel beams, wood columns, steel columns, and foundations. Our implementation of load linking is truly a reflection of what our users told us. We keep track of how many times a feature is requested, and we prioritize our development efforts based on the demand we receive from our users. This is why I want to encourage everyone to take this short survey to let us know where we should implement load linking feature next. All you need to do is open any of the modules that already have load linking implemented in them, such as steel column or steel beam, and then click on the linked loads button and then click on this tab right here that says others. and then click on the survey. Take the survey, and whatever gets requested the most is what typically gets developed first. So please take the survey and let us know where you want us to implement linking, load linking next. And now that we wrapped up with load linking, I have one more update. We have a growing library of calculations, verification calculations. You can navigate to them on our website. You can click on for our users page and then documentation and then verification calculations. So you click right here and then verification calculations right here. We will continue to update this page with more verification examples as we produce them. You can see that we already have made about, I think, 6 verification calculations for 6 different modules. We made that available on our website. This will help our users check our design and make sure that ENERCALC performs as well as compare the hand calculations based on the ENERCALC report results and compare them together and make sure that everything is to their liking. These verification calculations can also serve as a great learning resource for young engineers and a quick refresher for those who need it. We plan on continuing to add more verification calculations to cover more modules as we go. Our next conference presence, we're excited to join the Structural Engineering Association of Utah annual conference in February 25th. Chelsea from our team will be presenting there, or will be representing us there. So please make sure you stop by and say hi to her and sign up for a cool Lego raffle, as we always do. And that's the end of it for me, and we're ready for live Q&A.
All right, fantastic. Let's get into some questions and answers. All right, first question. Is there a way to sort members alphabetically? So I'm going to assume this is referring to sorting in the project manager. Mac, I don't know if you have a live instance of ENERCALC up right now, but
Yeah,
you do
dude.
have, for those who don't know, you have several options for how you can sort your calculations in the ENERCALC project manager view. There's the default view, which is by divisions. You could also sort by calculation type. And then now with the introduction of load linking, as Max said, we can also sort by actual load path, and we can sort by material as well. So that would be, for example, by concrete, by steel, or by module type, steel beam, steel column, and so on. You don't have the option to sort alphabetically at this time, but you do have some other flexibility. And obviously, you can sort into divisions. You can create arbitrary divisions and rearrange those divisions as well.
Correct. Yeah, that's yeah. I hope everyone can see my screen here. I'm just kind of showcasing this that you can do it by type, you can do it by material, and you can create divisions and just add calculations specifically to those divisions and order them that way. And of course, if you're using load linking, you can always do the calc order. So that will show you linked loads, and they show them in the calc order right here. And any other calculation that doesn't have any linked loads, then it will be displayed in a different header right here.
Perfect. All right. Next question. Does load linking work for composite steel beams? If not, will it be included in the future? So this is a great jumping off point to circle back to the survey that Mac was talking about. So the short answer is no support for steel composite beams at this exact moment. However, we know that that's a workflow that engineers are interested in. And so in order to weigh in on that topic, you can use that button inside ENERCALC itself, or you can just use that link that I dropped in the chat. If everybody wants to direct their attention to the chat for a moment, you can look and see that I dropped that link and you can go access that survey directly. The only reason steel composite is not supported right this moment is because it's obviously because of the sequencing issues that go into composite, because you have pre-composite, post-composite, and all of that. It's not the same low-hanging fruit that your regular beam modules are. And so we prioritized on our development work, we prioritized beams that don't have that extra complexity in the loading. That's not to say it's not going to be supported in the future. Good question. And Mac is showing you guys that survey right now. All right, next question. When a beam reaction is changed, do the downstream members update automatically, and will the downstream calculations be flagged if they now fail? So hopefully Mac touched on this topic for you and got you some clarity on this, but I'm going to let him go ahead and revisit this in real time in front of us here.
Yes. And I want to see here, so you can see here everything is green. And again, green means that the reactions that we have linked, they're all up to date. So if I go to the wood beam right here, and if I change the load, let's say I'm going to change this dead load to 20 instead of 25, and I click save and close. And what happens is that you will see that ENERCALC will automatically flag these calculations because all of these calculations, from our example, they're all dependent on this wood beam right here on the reaction from the wood beam. And you can see that we have the statuses right here. This means that the calculation needs to be recalculated, and that means just the preceding member, which the wood beam here is the preceding member that changed, and the steel column and the steel and the general footing, they're saying that there are more than one member upstream that is affected by this change. So you'd have to fix them one at a time. You can fix them one at a time by opening each one and doing the work, or you can just click on this right here, which is perform a bulk recalculation. And what it does, it will rerun through the logic, figure out what changed, and it grab those reactions downstream and apply them. And then finally, once it goes through all of them, it will turn everything into green. And again, green does not mean that the member passes. It just means that the new updated reaction is now implemented, and you still have to go through here and make sure that, okay, this is members are passing and everything is squared away. But that's a quick way for you to get the reactions to update.
All right, fantastic. Next question. Can I link a column to other columns or to beams? So we probably have some clarity on this already based on Mac's comments. Column to column and column to beam are not supported at this time, but we definitely have the ability for everyone to weigh in on what they would like to see next.
That's correct. So you can do beam to beam of various, of both materials, wood beam to steel beam or steel beam to wood beam and so forth. And you can do beam to column of various materials, so wood beam to a steel column and all that. And then once you get the load into a column, then the column can only link that load directly to a footing for now. But if you take the survey and you let us know what you want, that would be the way for us to know what we develop next.
All right, next question. While doing load linking, do we need to add dead load and live load in span loads? So I'm not 100% clear on what's being asked, but there's a couple different ways we can approach this. So obviously, when you perform load linking operations, as Max showed us today, the load has to start somewhere, and that often comes from a beam calculation that's all the way at the top of the load path that doesn't have any linking on it, but its reactions become the source that you then link downstream. So that calculation, the calculation that's at the very top of your load path, obviously is going to have to be loaded manually. And that can be done through any of the conventional means that you've always used in ENERCALC calculations. That could be your span loads tab, your loads all spans tab, and so on. Now you also have the option to auto add your beam weight to account for dead load and so on. Then the reactions that are generated from that calculation, which you would have formerly transcribed manually, now can be transcribed automatically by going to a downstream calculation and linking those reactions. So feel free to ask a follow-up question if there's something that we haven't answered for you. But Mac, go ahead if you want to take a shot at addressing that particular
Yes.
question.
To make sure it's clear, you have this wood beam and you have a wood girder. The wood beam, the load that's applied on the wood beam, that is a manually applied load. The the load that's applied on the wood girder, it is linked load from these wood beams. So with this in mind, if you go back, so this is the wood girder right now. All of the load that you can see here, all of this load comes from load linking. As you can see here, span loads, I have nothing, and loads all spans, I have nothing here. This doesn't mean that I'm not saying that you can't have something, you can, but I'm just not adding anything here. All of that load comes directly from the linked reactions from those joists. However, now let me go back to the wood beam, and that's the most upstream member. If you click on this one doesn't have any linked loads because this is the first member. Nothing else, it's not nothing is linked to it. So that's why it's nothing here. And that load comes directly from the manual application that we typically have and we're typically used to. So that's how I have this. The first member has manually applied load, and then the rest of them they just have linked loads or linked reactions.
All right, next question. Could you develop something similar as you did in the linking load search box? Ahmed, I'm not 100% certain on what you're asking there, but feel free to ask a follow-up question if there's something we can answer for you there. Mac, I believe you did briefly cover the use of the load linking search box for keyword search for easier navigation of your
Yeah, and I can
linked
actually go
loads.
through it. Here, let me go through it because it's very
It's a great feature to dwell on for a second anyway.
yes, absolutely. So this is nobody has a calculation for a whole building that just has two beams, or most of the time that's not the case. Most of the time you have, 10, 12, 13, 15, even more calculations, and sometimes the names all become the same, or it's kind of hard to navigate. So for example, uh, this list right here only has three, but if I specifically want the wood beams, I can just do wood, and then now that'll show up here is like saying, okay, well, this is right here and this is right here. I can do wood number one, beam, and then now it's filtered this. So if you have, 20, 30 calculations, 20, 30 different beams, for example, you can easily just filter by keyword right here to make your life a lot easier.
Fantastic. All right, next question. When choosing governing code, should load combination directly sync with it so I don't have to do it manually? This is a classic example of sort of a 50-50 design decision where ENERCALC has to try to be as helpful and as neutral as possible because workflows and opinions typically tend to divide down the middle with those kind of things. And so we don't want to overly couple those settings because it's not 100% true for us to assume that all users want load combinations to follow the governing code around everywhere it goes. Mac, if you have anything to add on that, go ahead, or we could briefly visit that window if you have thoughts.
Yeah, and just want to make sure they understand. They're talking about the ability to control load combinations separately inside here, as well as a default value, correct?
Oh, well, they're saying
Is that?
why doesn't load combination automatically sync with your governing code, basically.
Yeah, it's a flexibility thing. I think,
Exactly.
yeah, I agree with you. It's 100% flexibility thing because if it does sync and then sometime you want to go and change something very specific to maybe a specific calculation that you want to use, maybe a different set of combinations. If we lock it up here, I think we'll get complaints about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I just want to briefly mention, ladies and gentlemen, that we are in the presence of greatness today because the one and only Michael Brooks is in attendance in our office hours session today. For those who don't know, Mike is the founder and creator of ENERCALC. He's the father of ENERCALC, and we owe an awful lot to Mike for all the amazing work he did over the years. So, everything you guys
Absolutely.
enjoy today, we're standing on the shoulders of giants because Mike created ENERCALC from nothing and made it what it is today. So thanks for dropping in, Mike. Great to hear from you. All right, next question. How can we submit a request to separate linked load member options by division? So as always, I know we mention this from time to time in each session, but as always, you can always send us a feature request. Support at enercalc.com will get you to our engineering team to log those. It sounds like in this case you're talking about additional ways to view or separate what's going on in the project manager. Right now we have just the original three ways that you can view, and then we have the calc order tab. So it sounds like you're talking about the ability to break out by divisions and then rank each individual division by linked load order or something of that nature. Feel free to reach out to the support team if you have more detail about what you'd like to see there. Go ahead, Mac, if you had something to add.
Request. Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understood the question. Yeah, other than just kind of separate them, I guess, in divisions. Yeah, that would be that looks like it's a more of a feature request. Separate.
All right, next question.
Um,
Why not
I
show that a
just
member?
wanna
Oh, go ahead.
I
Sorry,
want to
Mac.
get back to one thing here because I want to make sure that we get this. So you you do have, because I want to make sure to touch on this with load combinations. So if you're working, for example, we're working on IBC 24, 2024, or whatever IBC you're working on, you do have the ability to have a default set of load combinations that you want to use for every project. So that would be the default that will show up every time you open a calculation. And that could be it for the person who just asked the question, because this way it'll be synced to that. It's just I think what the part that I'm trying to get at is that this does not control your load combinations. This is the one that controls it. So if you have an IBC here, for example, IBC 24, and you're going into the calculation and you're seeing a load combination that doesn't match the IBC 24 is because you need to select that from here, for example, the IBC 21 or whatever, and you can have that shown as the default load combination that you see every time. That will fix the question I think that the first person was asking about. And then in every calculation, if you want to manually change that specific calculation, you can control it from the inside. But as far as syncing with the building code, you can absolutely do that from here, and you can even create your own set of combinations that you want to run, and you can have that as a default as well. I just wanted to touch on that there is a way to sync. Just I want to make sure that they understand that the building code here does not control what load combination you're using, and you'll have to pick it differently here.
All right, next question. Why not show that a member passed or failed in the summary dashboard at the project manager? So, like Max said, yeah, there's an important difference between the badging that represents whether you're using the latest greatest loads versus a pass fail status. And so when it comes to recognizing pass fail information, ENERCALC has always leaned on having those reports available. As you can see, when Max cycles from one calculation to the next, he's able to view those reports. Um, it's not always possible to provide a succinct pass fail status for every kind of ENERCALC calculation. For example, general footing is a great example of that because general footing checks multiple different limit states. You have sliding, you have global overturning, you have soil bearing. Um, in the case of a biaxial analysis, you have soil bearing about two axes, sliding in two axes, and so on. So that's the reason that ENERCALC has always emphasized making that report available to you in the project manager view, rather than trying to somehow succinctly indicate some sort of a universal pass fail. All right, next question. Mac, I know you know the answer to this one. What about load linking for ENERCALC for Revit? So
Yeah,
ENERCALC
that's
for Revit is a fun one. Go ahead.
yes. Yeah, you go ahead. This is
Well,
this is your
so
baby.
yes, ENERCALC for Revit actually has native load linking capability, which completely predates load linking in ENERCALC itself. And it's a different framework. Load linking in ENERCALC for Revit is available. It's very feature rich and intuitive. Does not cross over or interact with the features that Mac was demonstrating today because the ENERCALC for Revit existed before this load linking framework we looked at today was developed. So the function and behavior is identical. It's very seamless. It's very intuitive, but it's all happening spatially in the 3D environment instead of the process that we saw today where Mac goes through and he goes manually take this reaction, put it on this element at this location. All of that is done on the fly automatically in Revit when you're using ENERCALC for Revit because you can actually physically determine those relationships by proximity, location of intersection, support relationships, and so on. So, for example, when you have a system of infill beams on a girder, on a column, on a footing, all those associations can be built on the fly and managed very easily. So yes, all those features do exist in ENERCALC for Revit. One distinction actually is that steel composite load linking does exist in ENERCALC for Revit at this time, and so you can link wood beam, steel beam, um, steel composite beam, girders, columns, all the way down to foundations. All right, next question. How could we do if load linking start at a certain point from support and end at some distance with some spacing? So the spacing feature that we have in load linking, and I'm sure Mac wants to get in and show this, it has a start point. It does not have an arbitrary end point. And so if you need both an arbitrary start and a stop, you might be better off placing individual specify loads because the spacing is going to be indefinite until the end of the beam. But the nice thing about load linking is it is not a one-to-one relationship where once you've linked a reaction, then that's all you can do with it. You can take the same reaction from the same calculation and link it multiple times on multiple locations across that beam. And so between the specify and the spacing capabilities, you have some pretty nice flexibility to get in there and create those. The only exception being you can't designate an arbitrary stop point for a repeated spacing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I want to emphasize this because this is really important. Um, this is wood beam, and this is reaction one from this wood beam. And I linked it the first time to be applied at third points, which is this one and this one. And then I decided that I'm going to link it again at midspan. And I can turn around and grab it yet one more time. And maybe I want to apply it at 2 feet from the left-hand side, and I can add it here. So at least, yeah, this is definitely not a it's not like once you link it once you're stuck and you can't link it again. You can link it as many times as you want. Now to get back to um, the other, I just want to show here the spacing. What I can do, as you said, we can determine a specific start point, but then the end of this will be at the end of the span. So I can say, I want you to start at six, from 6 feet from the left-hand side and then repeat every 2 years. And you do this, and it will, leave this empty and it'll go all the way down here. We can do the same thing and say maybe from 10 and do it that way. However, the end point has to be at the end of the span. It cannot be an arbitrary point. In that case, you might end up having to maybe apply the load manually and say, okay, well, I have this load at, 10 feet, and then I have the exact same load again, but I'm going to put it this time at 13 feet and so forth. So it's slightly manual process, but you can do it that way.
And one other thing that I really, really love about all these load controls for load linking, especially on beams, is that all of those relative location tools that Mac was pointing out, meaning the midspan, third points, and quarter points tools, are all dynamic relative locations for those loads. And so if you establish the span geometry and then you go, hey, we've got midspan or third points or quarter points, if you then later down the road go and change the span geometry for that particular span or for an entire beam, all of those point loads are going to dynamically update and they will remain at the appropriate span relative locations. So it's not like once you place a beam at midspan, then if you alter the span length, now that load remains off center and has to be manually corrected. Instead, those all remain always applied in their proper locations. All right, next question. Okay, this is a follow-up question from Ahmed talking about filter, and he's just talking about a keyword search filter navigation feature for the project manager, similar to what we have for load linking. So that would be a fantastic feature request to pass along to the engineering team, especially for those larger projects where you have many, many calculations. All right. Next question. I cannot remember from the presentation. Is it possible to pick specific load types or reactions from a linked member, or does the linked load collect all reactions from a linked member? So you probably saw when Mac was going through that workflow just now, you pick a specific reaction Right now, we don't give you the ability to choose or to cherry pick individual cases from that reaction. If you pick support one or support two from a particular beam, you're going to get all the cases of the forces that occur at that reaction. But you do have the ability, for example, in a multi-span beam, to choose which specific support location you're taking and linking onto your new member. Because ultimately, we're treating these like point loads, and a point load would be a discrete reaction location. And like Mac is showing here, if you were to do that with a column, for example, that's going to bring all the components, meaning shear in two directions, moment about two axes, and then the axial force as well. So within a certain reaction, we don't allow you to cherry pick certain components or certain cases, but you do have the ability to designate a specific reaction you want to work with. Go ahead, back if you wanted to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I want to make sure that yeah, you once you pick the support point, then you're grabbing everything that's associated with that. That means if there's, axial, shear, and moment, you're grabbing the whole thing. You cannot cherry pick, or currently there's no way for you to just say, oh, well, I just want the shear in the X direction, but I don't want the rest of it. You can't do that. And the same thing for load cases. You can't say, I just want to grab the dead load portion and leave the roof live, for example. It's you're taking the full reaction.
All right, next question. There's really no way to incorporate live load reduction when linking beams, is there? So this is an interesting topic. Live load reduction in general is a challenging topic because the eligibility and the magnitude of reduction that's permitted is different from element to element as you walk down a gravity load path, right? So a beam is not going to be eligible for the same live load reduction as a girder, as a column, as a foundation. So the way this is addressed in ENERCALC for Revit, if you're working in the 3D Revit environment, if you choose to implement live load reduction on a particular calculation, the live load reaction magnitudes that we store in the Revit model for downstream use are unreduced using a reciprocal of the live load reduction factor so that you don't get inappropriate multiple reductions as we go down the load path. So each time we calculate live load reaction forces, we unreduce those before we store them so that if you then go and do reduction on a column, then go to do reduction on a footing, you're not accidentally reducing down to nothing, which is not really what the code permits or intends. There's no mechanism built into ENERCALC itself right now to assist with a live load reduction process. So that would be open to engineering judgment and however you set up the magnitudes of loads on those manually loaded calculations near the top of your load path as far as those live load magnitudes that go on the beam that or the column that represents the genesis of those reactions going down the system. Excuse me. All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you guys sticking with us through the Q&A. We're definitely after the hour here, but we definitely enjoy this time and look forward to all the discussion every month. Mac, we're pretty much wrapped up here. Do you want to close us out with a teaser for next month?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to thank everyone for their time today, and we appreciate your being here. And we're excited for next month's office hour session. Will be on March 11th, and we will be covering the concrete column module. So look forward to seeing everyone next month.
All right, fantastic. As always, we look forward to our office hours sessions. We love having you guys with us every month. Thanks for all the great discussion. Everybody have a great one, and we'll look forward to seeing you in March.